Welcome back, everybody, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki, and this is my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. And today it is episode 90, where we are going to be talking one of my favorite films of the year, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. I saw this at TIFF a while back. You can go check out my TIFF 50 episode from a couple weeks ago where I talk about all 10 films I saw. I said I would do a longer form episode on this movie because I loved it so much. So that is what we're going to do today, as it is now widely released everywhere. You can go see it in theaters, and I might go see it again, but I haven't seen it since TIFF, but we're still going to talk about it today. I'm very excited to chat all about it. Before we get to it, I hope you are all doing well. A couple of things to plug before we get into the news of the week. YouTube videos coming out, so I did my physical media collection stuff a few weeks ago for our September video. Go check that out. And then on Halloween, I will be dropping a video all about the Batman Part 2, my theories, my fan casting, my predictions and hopes. It's going to be a lot of fun. Also, like I mentioned, go check out the TIFF 50 video from a few weeks ago, or episode rather, tell you all about my TIFF experience, and we talk a little bit about this movie, but also 9 other films, and of course, timestamps below. If you don't want anything known about this film and you want to go in completely blind, which would be Psycho, to be honest, you can absolutely do that, but there's also a non-spoiler section where I just give you my general thoughts and themes and where I think this movie could end up at Oscar time, and it's going to be a fun conversation. But what do you say? Should we hop into the news of the week? Let's do it. Let's talk the news. Our first story, we finally have some indication of Batman Caped Crusader Season 2. I feel like it's been forever since Season 1 dropped. Wasn't that at the start of 2025? Was it January or Christmas time last year? Either way, I absolutely loved Season 1. And of course, spoilers, but at the end of the season, they teased the Joker in that universe. And they were talking at New York Comic Con about Caped Crusader Season 2. And apparently, this Joker is going to be very different. One of the creators said, I think it'll be a new take on the Joker for people who only know of Joker like Mark Hamill and Jack Nicholson. This take on the Joker will be very different for them, but for people who've read comics for a long time, it won't be. I think some people will recognize it and go, oh, I see what they're doing, and others will go, wow, this is different, but I think it's all Joker. Now, they could be referring to, I think it was in the 70s and 80s when the Joker took on a bit more of a serious role in some comic runs. Like, there are some comic runs where the Joker is not this goofball, laughy guy. He is just a straight up psycho who has a much more depressing and like subdued nature to him. So I'd be interested to see that version. I bet you it's going to be like he was an orphan in Gotham as well, or he's had everything ripped from him and he grew up poor and that's why he's in that little shack in the city. But I'm very excited for Season 2. I might rewatch Season 1 soon because it was so great. Did I watch it this year? I can't even remember when it came out. Either way, I'm pretty pumped for where they're going to go. I love the production design of that world, setting them back in the 50s and reinventing characters. I mean, it's fun to just get these different interpretations. It's not like they're doing it like all these, I don't know, keyboard warriors were saying, oh, they're doing it for woke or DEI. It's like, no, they're just reinventing characters because why not? Batman's like Shakespeare. It's like, oh, well, what if we made this character a woman? Or what if we actually changed the origin of this character in a fun way? And none of it is like, I don't know, defeating the show or hurting the show in any way. It's just like, let's do another version of this character. That's fun. And I like Hamish Linklater as Batman. I think he does a really good Batman voice that grew on me as the series went on. And Season 2, I'm excited for them to have an overall mystery while doing sort of the episodic fun things that we saw from Season 1. So I'm pumped. And it was nice because just a couple weeks ago or last week, I think I was talking about, oh, what's going on with Caped Crusader? Are they getting a Season 2 done? And I guess they are. And I'm very excited for a Season 2. But speaking of Batman, Andy Muschietti was talking about The Flash this week because there's that new It, Welcome to Derry, Welcome to Derry, the prequel show of It and Pennywise that takes place in the 70s, I guess. And people were asking about Andy Muschietti about The Flash, and he came out sort of swinging and defending the film, saying a lot of people did not see it, but you know how things are these days. People don't go see things, but they like to talk shit about it and they like to jump on bandwagons. I partially agree. I do think there's this like online thing where people love to just jump on a trend of like, oh, everyone's hating on this thing, and even if I haven't seen it, oh, well, I've seen clips of it and it looks terrible, so people form their opinion based on those things. But he's like a quarter true. No one really did see the movie. It bombed at the box office and did not do well, but at the same time, people who did see it all verified, yeah, it's a bit of a hunk of trash. And I'll go to bat for him a little bit and say there's like 2/3 of the movie that really do work before it gets into the messy, weird third act. And I do think the CGI is genuinely like really, really bad and weird in some parts, but I think it's an okay shot film and the story is entertaining for like 2/3 of it. I see where he's coming from and I do partially agree with him, but at the same time, it was not a great movie, and I think he does need to sort of take a lot of the, take a bit of responsibility, at least, not all the responsibility, because that film was in production hell for like 6 years with directors coming on and off and then rewriting the script, and it's actually going to be Ben Affleck Batman, then it's going to be George Clooney, now it's who are the cameos, but like that third act with all of the slop cameos or whatever that were resurrecting people, that's like inexcusable and terrible. So he shouldn't be surprised that people online see that and say, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. This looks bad, and he would even agree that some of that is inexcusable. What's funnier to me is that like Tom Cruise came out, Stephen King came out, and all of these people like James Gunn came out and said, oh, it's one of the best movies of recent years, and it's a box office like miracle, or it's considering the movie's production, it's a miracle this was made this good. And then you watch the film and it's like, really, Tom Cruise, this is one of the best superhero movies since The Dark Knight, like they like to say about every superhero movie that comes out. I don't know, that was just such a crazy time. Was that 2023 or 22? I think 23, right? And that was just such a weird period of DC because things were changing and it was like, oh, who's going to show up at the end? And then we trap Ezra Miller Flash in the George Clooney universe, which is hilarious to me. And what an odd film. What a time to be alive. But our next story is Ryan Reynolds actually tracked down a real human named Tilly Norwood, not the AI actress, to star in an ad for Mint Mobile's home internet service. Look, Ryan Reynolds, I think he is like a pretty unlikable person. He's very like fake, trying to be funny and trying to be everyone's best friend, and seems like there's a psycho inside of him. But once in a while, he is a little bit based, and he does sort of do something that's really fun and good, and that, like, making fun of the whole Tilly Norwood thing, I think is a really smart move. And the sooner that we see this is like a huge joke, this Tilly Norwood thing, and we make these CEOs feel stupid for having the idea, the sooner we can maybe move past it and they can accept that, oh, maybe people don't want AI actresses, or, oh, everyone's just making fun of us online. And big celebrities like him coming out and saying this stuff. And there were a bunch of other actresses that actually like wrote open letters to the public, like, as an actress who is aging and in my 40s, Tilly Norwood will never know the struggle of. And I really loved all of that. I was going to talk about one last week, but I couldn't find who was it or what was it. And anyways, I just really like that there's been a lot of people coming out against the whole Tilly Norwood thing, like Emily Blunt. We talked a little bit about her. It's one of those things that the sooner we delegitimize it and the sooner that we make fun of it and call it out as stupid, pretty much, the sooner we can maybe move past it and stay with our human actors. And it's just a much better way to handle it than, oh, everybody laugh about it but keep treating it seriously. I mean, kind of crazy to say this out loud at least, but that's how Trump got in office. Everyone was like, oh, it's so funny that Trump's running for president, ha ha ha, but no one ever stopped to say like, oh, he is unqualified. Now look where we are. And it's going to be the same thing with like AI actors and actresses in films. But let's move into our next story, which is Christopher Borgle's The Drama, starring Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, will release on April 3rd, 2026 in theaters. The film follows a romance that takes an unexpected turn before a couple's big day. Now, look, just because it was moved to April, it's not a bad thing. We've gotten good movies in April and March, like Sinners, Dune Part 2, but some people online were saying, oh, it's kind of strange they're not doing any festival stuff. They're going to the part of the year where there is no festivals, and it's kind of just going to debut in a dead zone a little bit. But I don't know, maybe people are reading a little bit too into it, that like, oh, it's going to be terrible maybe, and that's why the studio is moving it to then. I don't know, it's two fun stars, and coming out in the spring, it could make some money because people love Zendaya, people love Robert Pattinson. Even this morning, I watched a clip from Die My Love, and it looks hilarious, but also insane. I'm very excited for it. I think we'll do an episode on that instead of Running Man that week, or Predator Badlands. I don't know. I'm kind of torn between the two, but we'll see what we cover that week. But but I'm very excited for it, and I'm excited for this film as well. I think the drama, it could be really cool seeing these two powerhouse stars that a lot of people love combine, and it's not the only film they're doing together. I mean, they're doing Dune Part 3 together, and is Zendaya in... Is she in the Odyssey? I can't remember. I feel like she was cast in the Odyssey, but they're a fun pairing, and I'm excited to see what the project looks like. Is it a small little A24 film that's going to be underdeveloped and like, oh, it's a great idea, but they don't really do anything with it, whether it's Death of a Unicorn or Opus that we got this year, or is it going to be a really fun, big, deep A24 film that actually has some legs to it, like the film we're going to talk about today, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, but I'm excited for that to come out. And our final story of the day before we hop into the film, Jim Carrey is in talks to star in the Jetsons live action movie. So Warner Brothers is developing a live action film from Colin Trevorrow, who did the Jurassic World films, and all right, a Jetsons film. Like, if you don't know, the Jetsons is an old animated series that was out like at the same time as the Flintstones, and it's this futuristic world, and it's one of many properties that Warner Brothers and other companies are like, oh, we should do a live action one. And I don't think the Jetsons have been relevant probably in 30 years. Like, nobody has watched the Jetsons, and I think there was actually a Jetsons movie in 1990, but it was animated, so there's never been a live action film. But Jim Carrey is kind of a weird choice because I feel like he's a little bit old to be the scientific dad in that. I don't know, I thought it would have been Chris Pratt because he's literally cast in anything, which we didn't even talk about the trailer for that movie he has with Rebecca Ferguson coming out in January. It's like he has 90 minutes to prove if he's guilty or not, but it looks god awful, and I'm probably going to watch it because it looks like it could be a very funny awful. And I think Rebecca Ferguson's even trying to do an American accent in it. It's like his AI girlfriend that the world has maybe turned to AI to prove court cases, and now Chris Pratt has to prove it to his dead AI girlfriend or something. I don't know. It looked like dog shit. I think this Jim Carrey idea in a Jetsons movie is a bad idea, but all right, I think I'm done with the news of the week. I think we should hop into If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Remember, timestamps below if you only want to hear the non-spoiler section, but there's going to be a lot to cover, so let's do it. Let's talk If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You is a 2025 comedy drama coming in at 1 hour, 53 minutes. It is directed and written by Mary Bronstein. This is only her second film, I believe, and that's really impressive when you watch the movie. Reviews are very positive, 7.3 on IMDb, 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, 3.8 Letterboxd average with a 4-star mode. The synopsis for the film: with her life crashing down around her, Linda tries to navigate her daughter's mysterious illness, her absent husband, a missing person, and an increasingly hostile relationship with her therapist. The film stars Rose Byrne as Linda, Delaney Quinn as Child, Mary Bronstein as Dr. Spring, A$AP Rocky as James, Ivy Walk as Diana, Conan O'Brien as therapist, and Danielle McDonald as Caroline. So let's finally talk fully about If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Here are my initial thoughts of my full review, I guess, not my TIFF review, but one of the year's best movies, and a movie I really want people to watch because it's a truly unique vision from Mary Bronstein that I absolutely loved. I mean, I'm not a parent, I'm not a mother, but I was just finding myself lost in Rose Byrne and lost in the story, and there's so much to unpack here, and it's just so phenomenal. But let's talk about the performances, because Rose Byrne as Linda, if she doesn't get an Oscar nomination, I will be so upset. This is one of the ones this year that I truly need to happen. Everyone else, like whether it's Chase Infinity or Tiana Taylor or whoever this year, Leo, Benicio del Toro, there's lots of other actors that I want to get an Oscar nomination this year, but Rose Byrne is the one I'm most dying for because it's some of the best work I've seen this year. I mean, she does some of the best tired acting I've ever seen in my life. There's one scene where she's in a therapy session with a client and she's been up all night smoking weed and getting drunk, and she's like half asleep in the scene, and she plays it so authentically. Like, I was exhausted just watching her, and she's sort of like falling over and her eyes are struggling to stay open, and she just has these huge bags on her eyes, and it's truly phenomenal how physical she is in this role while not doing that much, like just sitting there being tired. But also she has these huge moments of explosive emotions and just like throwing herself out there and ripping her heart out, and then she has these way quieter moments that are just absolutely hilarious, and I loved her so much. And you'll also notice that Mary Bronstein is not just directing and writing, but she's in the film as Dr. Spring, and I really liked her inclusion. It's not a distracting inclusion, and I think the role she's playing is really important as this stern and straightforward doctor who is trying to wake up this mother to her daughter's illness, that they're trying to reach these goals, whether it's her weight or trying to get her off this certain medication or on this certain medication or whatever. And I feel like Mary Bronstein's role is very important in this film as someone who is actually making sense and trying to genuinely help. I've seen some people online being like, oh, I don't know how helpful the doctor is because of how cold she is, but I think they're at this point in their relationship where Linda is falling apart and the doctor is trying to wake her up in an effective way by inviting her to these group sessions or these individual appointments or whatever it may be. And I just thought Mary Bronstein including herself was really bold choice, but I absolutely loved her. But let's get to maybe for a lot of people what will be the main event, unfortunately, and that is Conan O'Brien as the therapist. I spoke about in my last review how unexpected his role is, and you think he's going to play this one type of person when he is playing someone who is completely opposite to himself. And I listened to Mary Bronstein and Rose Byrne, both had separate interviews on Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend this week, and I was listening to those in preparation. And what I found really interesting from Conan when he was talking about learning for this role, because he's never done anything serious in his life ever, he's never done any kind of role like this, and he said that the therapist is so opposite to everything he would do. Conan is a people pleaser. Conan wants to help in every situation, even if he shouldn't, whereas this therapist is so unhelpful. He's so straight and doesn't want to cut tension. He just doesn't really care at the end of the day, and I love his dynamic with Rose Byrne. And of course Rose Byrne is such a seasoned veteran and is just a acting pro, of course, but Conan really has to punch above his weight and try to keep up with her, and it never felt like he was falling behind in a scene, or it's never like you could really see through the facade, or it's a gimmick that they cast Conan O'Brien in this role. I actually think he suits it so well, and he plays this cold person remarkably well. So kudos to them, and same with A$AP Rocky. This is the second film I've seen him in this year, along with Highest to Lowest and this, and he's so good in this film. I actually liked him better in this movie rather than Highest to Lowest. Of course, I like this movie way more than Highest to Lowest, but he's warm, he's fun, he's goofy, he's actually very helpful, and he's just kind to Linda, which I think is what she's dying for in this movie, even if she pushes that kind of kindness away. Or, you know, there's a fun line that's in the trailer where he's like, I was going to surf the web for some illegal things to partake or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And there's just a lot of really funny interactions between the two of them because they're so opposite. You know, he's this guy that works at a hotel. She's this mother who's a therapist and probably makes good money being a therapist, and really remarkable to see them kind of bond in these little small moments before things spiral and everyone starts freaking out. But the cast is just phenomenal in this film. I think everyone is giving a really great performance, and I love everyone in this. The story itself, though, you know, like the synopsis says, this is a tale of a mother who is really losing control and seems to be losing herself, and she's spiraling. This is a movie about spiraling in the medical context, when someone in your family is sick and you don't know how to deal with it and you start to lose that hope. You know, how many times can you say everything is under control before you implode? And that's what this film is. The tagline is everything is under control. It's a major focus in the trailer of her saying on the phone, and that's really what this movie is. It is a mother saying everything is under control over and over and over again, when in reality nothing is under control. And the movie is about her slowly losing control more and more and more of every situation she's in. And her experience in this film is one of those weeks where everything is sort of going wrong, and we've all had those times in our life. Like I had one week this summer where my car died, work asked me to do a bunch of stuff, my old job that was just like super annoying, and it really cut into stuff that I wasn't expecting, and I was getting frustrated. Then my dog got hit by a skunk one night, and it was just all in the same day, and it just felt like everything's kind of falling apart, and you start to just lose yourself and disassociate. This movie is that feeling magnified by a billion, you know, like it is just one of those things where it feels like the walls are all closing in, and it's one bad thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. And those kinds of movies are very popular, of course, where things are just going wrong, but Mary Bronstein makes it work in such a unique way. And I want to talk about Mary Bronstein for a second away from acting. As as a director, she is a real talent, and I love her distinct voice in this film, and how she shoots this movie is really interesting, and the choices that she's making. She is an in-your-face force that almost feels like someone giving you tough love, and you not only get that from her character, like I said, but as a director, this movie feels like a bit of tough love for these people that are losing hope or losing control or starting to spiral a little bit, but it is trying to say something. And just on a technicality standpoint, I think I spoke about in my TIFF review, but if you don't remember that, the film is shot completely in close-ups pretty much. Almost, I would say 75 to 80% of the film is close-up to our characters' faces, and it's very overwhelming. And even Rose Byrne talked about at the Q&A I attended after TIFF, but also on Conan's show, she talked about how the first week they were filming, Rose Byrne really had to get used to how close the camera was to her. And Mary Bronstein also spoke about the fact that she doesn't like to leave the room while they're filming. She likes to be in the room when they're shooting and just standing off to the side, whereas, most directors will leave the room and go watch it from like a video village set up down the hall or whatever it is. But no, she is in the room because she made a really interesting point that while filming, that's the only time you're ever going to see that moment live and be in the room for that. Whereas every other time after the take, you're only going to be able to see it on screens. So why not break that illusion or whatever it is? And it's funny that her directing choice and her camera shooting choice with her DP, like shooting only close-ups, is very interlinked, that she likes films that bring you up close to your subject matter and interrogate the subject matter. And being that close to your subject, it almost feels like the camera's a bit of a fly in the face of their characters and it's buzzing around them. And that's how this whole movie feels. Like, it feels like anxiety buzzing around your face and annoying you, and that slow build of tension and the annoying feeling over the entire 1 hour 58 minutes. And it's really great. And it was one of the things I walked away with immediately after watching the film is, my God, the camera did not back up from Rose Byrne's face once, and I absolutely loved it. And it's not like fake shaking and inauthentic movement up close. It's just being right there with the subject and really taking it all in. From a writing and emotional standpoint, she's also sort of amazing in how she's balancing the tones in this movie. It's one of the most complex movies tonally I've seen this year because it's dealing with a very serious subject matter of someone's child being sick, and yet the movie is so damn funny, and there were multiple laugh out loud moments for me that my crowd seriously loved at TIFF. How she's balancing those tones and releasing a bit of tension is really amazing, and I think that's a real skill that we've seen this year in a few different films, whether it is, one battle after another or this film. It's really fun to see a director that knows the perfect moments, when to undercut a moment with a laugh, or not even undercut a moment, but when a laugh will not undercut a moment, I think is a real skill, and that's what we get. And how she's building stress and she's building sort of guilt and anxiety in this film in a very organic way. It doesn't feel like there's anything trying to be thrown in that's not realistic to this situation just to build even more stress. Everything that happens is completely believable in this film. There's never a moment where I'm like, okay, we're sort of getting into the goofballery and we're taking it out of a real world context. Like, this all feels very natural, and it's like, oh my God, I would hate to be in this situation because there's probably so many mothers out there who are, or so many parents in general, but it's a very specific building of tension and holding that tension at the perfect moments until we get those really funny moments that feel like perfect timing, and the building of tension is what makes it way funnier. And I think what builds so much tension in this movie is that there's like these simultaneous end of my rope type feelings within Linda's career, within her home life, and of course with the illness of her daughter. It's just all of these things are all smashing together at once. Like I said, in one of those weeks where it feels like nothing's going right for you, she's sort of reaching the end of her rope in 3 different situations all at once, and it's piling up, and she can only tell herself everything's under control so many times, and the lines are sort of blurring between her career and her home life and her personal life. Whereas, you need compartmentalization in a situation like this. You need to be able to say, okay, work is stressful, but I got to put that to the side for my daughter. And this movie is about what happens when your ability to compartmentalize completely fails and everything is just crossing over each other. Your life is basically mashed potatoes and it's falling apart. And it's one of my favorite scripts of the year, I have to say. I hope it's one of the original screenplay nominees this year because it's just so damn good. It's so well written. It feels incredibly original, and it's coming from a very original place. Rose Byrne really talked about something that drew her to the script was the classic classic woman falling apart films that, yes, there have been very good films about women falling apart, but all of them are written by men, or predominantly written by men. And even Mary Bronstein touched on this as well on Conan's podcast, saying, it doesn't mean that these people can't write those films, that men can't write those films about women falling apart, of course. And she made a really good reference back to when Denzel Washington was talking about white filmmakers making black films. I think it was with his movie The Yard a few years ago. I can't remember, or Fences. I can't remember. It was an Oscar-nominated film a few years ago. And he's like, it's not about skin color, it's about culture. And I very much got the same thing from Mary Bronstein in this film, that there is a female voice behind this story who just understands some of the nuances a little bit better than a man could. And it only makes the film better. And that's not to say, like Mary Bronstein said, that's not to say that men can't make these films. And that's like Denzel said, it's not to say that certain filmmakers can't make films that are about other people's experiences. And that's what movies are all about, is experiencing other people's lives and cultures. But when you are coming from the culture and sharing that story of a culture, it just adds way more onto the quality. That's what you really get here. And that's what drew Roseburn to the story in the first place is, oh, this feels way more rich and deep because there is a woman behind it. And you really do feel that in an organic way, and how the stress builds and how reactions come out. And it's really great. And I think a man would not really be able to direct or write a story like this because of what it's saying with disassociation and shame and anger, and about how motherhood sometimes doesn't turn out how you think it's going to. Like, I think a lot of this film is Linda feeling like a failure of a mother because she can't help and she doesn't have the solution, and because of these societal pressures on women and mothers that, oh, well, they should always have the answer and they should be able to take care of their children because that is their role. And it's always the men that have to step in and have the immediate solution. And there's a lot of that in this film, but not in a preachy way. Like, I don't want to hear, cis white men being like, oh, well, of course, blah, blah, blah. Shut up. No, just stop. You have to analyze this film of what it's saying about motherhood from the women's perspective. And it's just really great when you get that perspective. And it's such a fun experience to see. Well, fun. I say fun. It's stressful as fuck. Like, I almost had to leave my TIFF screening of this movie because I was having a panic attack at one point throughout this, like, probably 5-minute scene, but it felt like 20 minutes because I just couldn't handle it. I stuck with it. I was very proud of myself. Maybe I'll talk about it in spoilers, but this is a movie about sort of shame and guilt and anger and how you can really fail to deal with these things in a healthy way. And that's what Linda is doing. And it's shame and blame. Like, who does Linda blame for her daughter being sick? And there's a lot of symbolism in whether it's her ceiling with the hole in her ceiling, because that's the inciting incident of this story, is they have a hole in their ceiling in their apartment, so they have to stay at a cheap hotel. So there's a lot of symbolism with the hole. There's a poster in a hallway that she goes by that talks about like a circle of guilt or a cycle of guilt or something like that. And the hole in her daughter's stomach that they are feeding the food through because she is sick. And it's really interesting how much there is a circular sort of symbolism to this film and spiraling, and it's very clear what's going on in this movie, but there is a lot of playing with reality that I love, and sometimes it works better than others. I mean, we just talked about Anemone last week, Ronan Day-Lewis film that I think maybe takes on a little bit more than it can handle, whereas this movie feels a little bit more experienced to deliver those sort of moments of dreaming or moments of hallucination and symbolism and what's real in this movie, what's not. There's a huge debate if you do Google If I Had Legs I'd Kick You ending explained. There's lots of people online theorizing about moments in this film that actually aren't happening, or moments in this film that are happening, or is the whole movie a hallucination or something like that. And it's really interesting to see, and whether it's all a dream that's stemming from shame and blame and guilt, or who's in a coma, or people in comas, all that stuff is just a lot of fun to play with. But on a technical note, I do want to mention that there's actually no score in this film. There is zero music that is orchestrated for this movie, and Mary Bronstein had to fight very hard for that. She said, I want the movie to have a natural tone to it without a score, and I don't want the music to add to the tension at all or take away from it. I just want the writing on the page to build the tension by itself. And again, I think that just goes to show how great of a filmmaker Mary Bronstein is, and I'm so excited to see what her next project is, because the way this movie builds the tension without any music, without any added on stuff to it, is quite remarkable because of how stressed you get just watching it. And as for the title, there's been lots of theorizing about what If I Had Legs I'd Kick You means. People always ask, oh, what's the title mean? And even at the Q&A, someone asked Rose Byrne, what does the title mean? And she said, I'm not going to reveal because Mary Bronstein has her own adaptation, and I haven't done any Googling of what I think, or what does the title mean or anything like that. I'm literally going to take my own stab at it right now. I think it's sort of just, if I could, I would, or people sort of saying, if I had the means to do something, I would hit you right now because you need a wake-up call. Is it guilt talking to Linda? Is it shame talking to Linda? Is it like the inaction of Linda's life talking to her? I don't know what it is. Or is it Linda in her head saying like, if I could, I would smack you right now because there's so many people around her that are just annoying her and not really helping her, but at the same time there are people helping her? Is it the doctor's perspective that like, if I could, I would smack Linda up the head? I don't know. There's no one in this movie that doesn't have legs. Or is it the hole in her ceiling or all the holes in her life? I don't know. It's a really interesting title that I think has a good ring to it, and I like it a lot. But let's hop into my 2 stars and a wish for If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Star number 1, a career best performance from Rose Byrne. I don't think she's done anything even close to this. It's one of my favorite performances of the year, if not my favorite right now. Oscar worthy, let alone nomination worthy, and I hope she gets there because she really deserves it. It was truly mesmerizing. Star number 2, I mean, it's a movie that is giving you unexpected performances, and that's really fun when you show up to the theater and A$AP Rocky and Conan O'Brien are giving seasoned performances of people that are sort of against stereotype or you wouldn't expect from them. That like, oh, A$AP Rocky's playing this like janitor / maintenance guy at a hotel, even though he's a very famous and rich rapper, and he's playing someone that's like blue collar and a little more laid back and it's fun. Or Conan O'Brien, who is playing someone completely against his own type, like he said. And my only wish, I mean, I actually don't have any wishes for this film. I think it's a phenomenal movie, but there's one very gross sequence in it that I wish I could erase from my head. But there's nothing I would remove from If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Overall, this film is my second favorite film of 2025 with how intense, guilty, and anxious it is. There's so much about this movie that just speaks to the experiences we have in our life that anyone can relate to, where everything's going wrong. It feels like the world's against you. It feels like you're helpless, but I think it's speaking to a really interesting experience that mothers have with illnesses of their children that a lot of fathers or men couldn't really relate to on a societal level. But at the same time, I think a lot of parents can just relate to this film. Rose Byrne rips her heart out, puts it on the screen. It's amazing. Mary Bronstein, one of the best directors this year. I give If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was my first 4.5 of the year. It's my second highest rated film, just behind One Battle After Another. I loved it so much. Please go and check out this film, but let's talk spoilers. All right, spoilers for If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Warning, I have a cough drop in my mouth if I sound a little strange at times. But okay, her daughter's mystery illness. There's been a lot of theories about what her daughter's actually going through. And there is a sort of wide consensus on the internet that her daughter has ARFID, which ARFID stands for Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. Someone with ARFID might avoid eating certain foods or types of foods because of like textures and stuff like that, which makes sense because such a focus of this movie is getting her daughter to eat and she needs to gain weight. That's why she has those intake food bags going into her stomach, because her daughter probably can't handle the texture in her mouth or it feels weird. And I think even in one scene where they're at the hotel restaurant on like the first day and she's like, oh, you want to eat all this bacon, blah, 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 blah. I think they talk about the texture really quickly. It's a mystery illness to her mom, but I feel like maybe it's not actually a mystery illness and everybody knows, but her mom's not listening in that moment. I'm not sure, or it's just a general eating disorder or something like that, but definitely ARFID seems to be what the internet has diagnosed her daughter with. But I want to focus now on one specific scene that I found so funny and was so close to sort of being a little bit over the top. And it's so interesting that I thought that about the scene, and that's what Conan thought as well when he got the script from Mary. Well, actually from Adam Sandler was the one who called him and said, hey, I have this movie script from A24. The Safdie brothers are producing, this director named Mary Bronstein. Would you read it? It's interesting because this is the scene he talked about in the interview with Mary, saying like, I don't know how you're going to pull that off. It's so crazy. But there's a scene where Linda has sort of lost it a little bit on her daughter and yelled at her because her daughter wants a hamster or a gerbil or whatever. And then her daughter starts crying and she's like, okay, we'll get the gerbil. And so they're in the car and the gerbil's like messing around in the box and her daughter opens the box. Linda grabs the hamster box and puts it in the front seat with her. And there's a mechanical comical or like a puppet gerbil that's so funny. And I was like, okay, this is like close to almost being a little bit over the top, but I think it genuinely works very well. And it's hilarious because it bites Linda, it bites the daughter, but then they stop the car and it hops out of the vehicle and they're having this huge argument after they've been rear-ended. They're yelling at this stranger, blah, 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 blah. And Linda loses her shit on the person that hits them. She's like, my fucking daughter's in the car, blah, blah, all that stuff. But then the gerbil runs across the road and gets smushed like pancake. And it's such a shocking moment in the film that is simultaneously shocking, but hilarious. And my whole theater had a huge gasp like, oh my God. And it was just hilarious to watch. But it's so amazing how Mary Bronstein puts such a ridiculous scene like that in the film where we're balancing a hilarious moment of this gerbil going nuts and getting run over with a really scary moment of Linda and her daughter being hit by the car behind them and Linda really just blowing up on a stranger's face. And it's a really scary and dramatic moment where Rose Byrne is truly just throwing herself off the edge. It's like I said, in non-spoilers, this film is so good at building tension and adding more hurdles and more issues for Linda to deal with, and then eventually releasing it with these really funny moments or these big moments of huge outbursts or rageful moments that are really magical and really do work from Linda, where it's like, oh yeah, that's like so realistic of how a real human being would react to the situation. You would lose your shit on someone rear-ending you with your sick kid in the car, especially after the stress you've had, you know? And it's really great. And the gerbil scene is so amazing and how it speaks to Mary Bronstein's ability to really take on the ridiculous stuff and the hilarious stuff with the extreme serious subject matter of this story. And the story is very serious, not just because of her own daughter and what Linda's going through, but her patient that the synopsis says goes missing. She has this new mother that she is a therapist for, and her mother is having a difficult time separating herself from the baby, and she's just stressing over the child 24/7. Like, it's like, oh, I don't know if he's eating right, is he sleeping right, I'm scared to leave him in. And Linda just tells her, like, you need to take an evening for yourself, you need to find a sitter. And the lady starts saying, oh, did you hear about that one mom in New York who left her daughter with a babysitter and the babysitter stabbed her child or something crazy like that? And it's like, yes, it's an extremely insane case that happens and it's paranoia setting in. But eventually I was shocked by the twist because I didn't know there's the missing person case part of this, that the mom is like, oh, can you excuse me while I go to the bathroom, and then just takes off. And it's one of the most stressful parts of the movie where she's freaking out in the office because the lady's gone, the child's crying. Conan O'Brien, the therapist, is there, who doesn't have a name, his name is just therapist. He's there as well, being like, can you stop shouting? And that's one of the only moments where he actually helps in the film, of being like, well, all right, let's figure this out. And it's just really remarkable how we're moving all around the office and it feels like all one take, and it's just building this natural organic moment of stress that really subverted my expectations. Like, oh, I did not think the mother was just going to take off, and now Rose Byrne has another child she has to take care of. And it's another layer of guilt that Linda has to take on because she feels responsible for telling the mother, oh, well, you should just take a moment for yourself, or you should leave the baby with someone you trust. And the mother listens to her because she clearly trusts her therapist. And just all of the therapist-client interactions are hilarious in this film. Like Rose Byrne saying to Conan, oh, you didn't respond to my dream email. And Conan's like, I don't respond to my client's dream emails. Or Linda, Rose Byrne, has the client that's in love with her who's like a high school student. And it's really magical, all of the therapist-client moments. I loved what Mary Bronstein has to say about therapists in this movie, that there are therapists who kind of just sit back and listen and don't really care, or even what a therapist's office says about them. You should really listen to the Mary Bronstein Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend episode. What she has to say about therapists in general is really fascinating, and I really loved it. But it's all very interesting, the therapy sessions that come into this film, whether it's Rose Byrne and her client, or Rose Byrne and Conan O'Brien's interactions, because Conan plays the therapist of Linda, and the role that therapy plays in not helping or helping in this movie. And when her client comes back at the end of the film, I really loved how that was the moment I questioned, is this real? And then I started to sort of dig how much of this movie is real. Maybe the car accident was so bad that they're in a coma, as one person on Reddit said, and I don't really think that's it. And I thought, oh, maybe she dreamt all of like the third act of the film. Maybe she got high and passed out, and then she dreamt that her husband came back and fix the ceiling. She dreamt that her client came to the hotel. She was trying to throw herself into her ways and finally saw her daughter. And it's really fun to play with the line of what's real and what's fake in this movie, because the shots where we're going through the hole in the apartment and it looks like her daughter's esophagus or her like stomach, the hole in her stomach, and we see these visions of the hospital and a child screaming and Linda screaming. It's really fun to try and pick apart what you think is real, what's a vision, what's a dream, what actually happened and is just her memory playing for us. I don't know, and I think it's definitely a rewatch is needed for this, and I can't wait to watch it again. I really tried to squeeze it in before this episode, but I still feel like I had a lot of thoughts that I could have worked through for you guys anyways. But when her client comes back at the end of the film, I think is definitely one moment I'm leaning towards not being real, and it's just like a buildup of her guilt that after her husband comes back and is, all, oh, I fixed the ceiling, blah, 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 and they listen to the husband right away, of course, but then when her husband comes to the hotel with them and meets James and is like, who the hell is this guy taking care of our kid? And James even starts losing it a little bit on him being like, well, where were you? And James with his broken leg is really funny too. But the ending really struck me with her husband coming back, immediately fixing it. He's still in his uniform. Linda is trying to throw herself into the ocean and running into these waves, and she's trying to throw herself into the craziness in some ways, but it's rejecting her and telling her you can no longer throw yourself into this craziness like she has been for the entire film. Whether it's, eating all the junk food late at night and drinking 2 bottles of wine and smoking a joint, or staying up all night, or parking, in the illegal spots and just throwing her daughter pretty much inside and being like, all right, let's do this shit or whatever. It's all of this payoff of her constantly throwing herself into the chaos for the movie and feeling that guilt and not pulling herself out, that it's finally she's being rejected from the chaos and she's not able to stay in the chaos, and she washes up on shore and finally seeing her daughter for the first time, which I think is a really great choice to not show the daughter the entire time. You don't see her daughter the entire runtime until the final scene. We never see her face. We only hear her voice and see her sort of off screen with her hands, or we never get a full shot of her face, so we don't know what she looks like. And that is how Linda is seeing her daughter. She is only seeing her as this thing on the outside that's sort of on the edge of her awareness, but she's never actually seeing her daughter for her daughter. And I think that does a lot emotionally that Mary Bronstein is achieving here. It's really helping you sort of ignore the daughter along with Linda, how she is. And I love that final reveal at the end. And some people have theorized that she finally sees her daughter because they have both died and they've gone to heaven, or she finally sees her, whatever, in the afterlife, something like that. I don't think so. I think it's just that she has finally left the spiral of guilt and shame and blame that she has been playing, whether it's in the group therapy session, telling the doctor and all the other mothers that it's all of your fault and it is our fault and we should feel bad. We shouldn't be alleviated of this stress or whatever. I think it's very fascinating to reflect on Mary Bronstein's choice to not show the daughter and even what that entire third act really means. Now, to end the spoilers, I want to talk about the tiff scene where I almost had to leave from the panic attack, and that is when Linda finally decides to take action, and the doctor tells her that, like, yes, you could take her tube out, or we could take her tube out, but it might not guarantee that she gets better, or she needs to be off the tube, blah, 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 and it's a risk. Linda has not taken really any risks throughout this film. She is sort of just giving in to every bad thing that happens. The scene that made me so anxious and uncomfortable is her pulling her daughter's tube out, and it's so drawn out, and the sound effects are just so real and gross, and of course there's no score to mask it, so it's literally just you sitting there as Linda is pulling a tube out of her daughter's stomach. Ugh, oh my god, just thinking about it right now, it's disgusting, and it just was so overwhelming for me. And like I've spoken about before on the show, I don't do well with like bodily gore or bodily gross stuff, so was a little bit overwhelmed in the moment, and I think I'm slowly getting better at body horror or just bodily elements in films, so this movie was another huge stepping stone for me to finally move past that. And who knows, maybe after that moment in the film her daughter dies and Linda dies, or it's all a vision. Who can really say other than Mary Bronstein herself? But I think that's all I really have for spoilers. I mean, this is a wild ride of a film where there's explosive group therapy sessions, there's one-on-one therapy sessions that go terribly wrong, and it's a therapist feeling responsible not only for her daughter's issues, but her client's issues, her own issues, and it's just everything's coming at her at once. And I really love this movie. I want to watch it again. Like I said, it's one of the year's best films. I really encourage you all to see it. But for now, let's move into what else I watched. Alrighty, what else I watched? I have 4 movies, 4 TV shows, 2 books, and 1 game to talk about. So let's talk about the game, Battlefield 6. I have bought the new Battlefield game because I got rave reviews from all of my friends and my brother, as well as the internet saying it's, the best Battlefield game we've had in a long time. So I played it for a few hours last night with my brother and our friends. Great PS5 experience. It is very punchy with the weapons. The graphics, of course, are amazing. It's 2025, but the game modes are really great. We played this one called Squad Deathmatch where it's like 4 teams of 4, and it's really great. But also the bigger game modes are fast, they're energetic. We've been playing Hell Let Loose a lot, and that's pretty much running simulator a lot of the time, but this game is snappy, small maps, closed in. I loved it a lot. But let's move on to my books. I have started to read a sort of film review or history of film type book called How to Read a Film by James Monaco. I started it on the train last weekend, and it's pretty good. I really liked in chapter 1, a section that I read of chapter 1 rather, where he talked about the purposes of art as we've gone through time. That art used to not be a capitalist, profitable thing. It used to be a way to explain experiences or to study humanity. And I tweeted this the other day when Variety was like, oh, one battle after another needs to make blah, blah, blah amount to get its budget back. And it's, considered a flop. And it's like, shut up. And I just tweeted about the book I'm reading that art used to actually mean something, and we weren't just evaluating the success of art based on how much money it makes. And it's not just meant to be a moneymaker. Art is meant to tell us things about life that we cannot simply answer on our own. And it's meant to give us relatable experiences or unrelatable experiences, or it's meant to find relatable things in different lifestyles that we are not ever going to have. So I'm just really tired of the whole art needs to be profitable and, oh, how much did this movie cost? How much did it make? Blah, blah, blah. Sometimes art is just art, and it exists, and it's good, and it tells us things about ourselves, and that's all we need to get from it. So that was How to Read a Film by James Monaco, which I'm going to slowly just work my way through whenever I'm not on the run with a comic run. But as for comics, I read Batman Hush this week, which I've read a few times, I think probably 3 or 4 times, but I was just rereading it ahead of my Batman Part 2 pitch video because I think Hush could be a possibility. But the comic itself is really good. I think it takes a few too many twists in the third act with like Clayface acting like Jason Todd, or I don't know, all of these villains teaming up. It's a lot of characters and a lot of people to handle in one story, but I do think Hush is a fun villain. But let's hop into TV shows. So last week we got the first episode of The Chair Company titled Life Goes By Too Fucking Fast. It really does. So this is a show starring Tim Robinson where he's giving this special presentation and his chair breaks when he goes to sit down after, and he's really embarrassed. So he goes to research the company and things just sort of spiral. I think it's a really fun show and I loved it. It really passed my expectations too, of not just being really good jokes that don't stay too long, and some people don't like how long Tim Robinson's humor can linger, but it's really snappy. A lot happens in the first episode. It has great performances from Tim Robinson, from Jim Downey, who is on a really fun run right now with one battle after another and then this. But after that, I caught up on Only Murders in the Building this season, so I watched episodes 3 to 8. I actually downloaded a bunch to watch on my train rides and my bus rides home and back from Toronto to Ottawa, and it's actually a pretty fun season. I don't know, I think Martin Short does this thing in the show where he gags or like all the time, and it's a really annoying sound that his character does almost every scene, and it's just too much, and I think they're trying to make it like a fun shtick that he has, and I really don't like it. But other than that, the character dynamics are still really bumping. I like the mystery of the season with the whole underground casino and the mafia, and I think Steve Martin is having a particularly good season on the show, like maybe his best season on Only Murders in the Building. They do this testosterone arc that I thought was absolutely hilarious, but I'm still enjoying the show a lot. If you're an Only Murders in the Building fan, let me know what you think of season 5. But let's talk Survivor season 49 episode 4. Go Kick Rocks Bro is the title of the episode. I thought this was a real still improvement on the first 3 episodes. And I think this week really proved that the 2-tribe format is so much better than the 3-tribe format. It's just a lot more dynamic and dramatic with more people in the group to be involved. But I also love the tribe swap and the dynamics of the 2 tribes, that it's yellow dominant on one side, red dominant on the other side. And these little interactions we're having, whether it's Sage calling out the fake bullshit spirituality stuff that Shannon was doing on the show, and she's very much a Jesus lover on the show and is sort of milking it in a way that people are gonna, I think, get annoyed with possibly. On a strategic level, I thought this was a really fascinating episode with the red tribe that's dominating, or I guess they're the yellow tribe now, but Nate is a really interesting character on the show in that, you know, Matt was trying to pull a move against him and he just sunk his teeth into Matt and was like, you're done. I would say Shannon is my next boot pick. I think people are just going to get a little bit tired of her personality and she's egging it on with the whole spiritual thing a little bit too much. Yeah, episode 4, Matt goes home, and I thought it was just a really great episode. Everything that we want from classic Survivor. It wasn't too over the top with the advantages. A challenge that wasn't just climb through the stuff and solve a puzzle. It was like a fun thing they all had to work together to do. So I was very happy. But let's talk about Gen V, because I finally watched episode 6 and then episode 7. So I'm fully caught up on Gen V. I'm week to week now. I think we have one more episode, which it's kind of flown by because they did all 3 first episodes on the first week, but I'm liking it. I mean, it's a super dark show, and I don't mean like emotionally. I mean, I can physically not see anything when I'm watching it. The color grading is just so dark and it pisses me off when I'm trying to watch during daytime. I'm like, where is everybody? But I think the characters have only grown more interesting week to week. I like the sister coming back was a really interesting twist, and it's just a very worthy spinoff of The Boys that has been enjoyable to experience week to week, and I'm excited for a season 3, or if they fold it into The Boys, season 5 or 6, what's the final season of The Boys, and then we get all of the characters interacting at once. It's a lot of fun. But let's move on to the 4 movies that I watched this week. So last weekend was Thanksgiving, and I was with my parents at my brother's house, and we were like, oh, let's watch a movie in our downtime or whatever. We actually ended up watching 3 movies over the 2 days, and all 3 were classics. So we started with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid from 1969, because we were having dinner with my grandma. We were talking about, Diane Keaton died, and then Robert Redford a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about some of their movies, and I was like, I've never seen Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It was on Disney Plus, and I was like, yeah, let's check it out, and it was freaking awesome. I mean, it's not only like great action and drama, but it's very funny. Like, Paul Newman and Robert Redford are just hilarious as this dynamic duo that are kind of, very good thieves and cowboys, or whatever you want to call it, but they are like a little bit goofy, and they just have some cracking one-liners. Like, they're being chased down by these guys for such a long time, and Robert Redford, or Sundance, I guess, turns to Butch when they're riding the horses and is like, hey, Butch, they're very good, when they start shooting at them. And it's just, he says it in such a dry way, and a lot of his lines he says it in such a dry way that is hilarious. It's also just like a very, sexy movie. Robert Redford's a handsome guy, Paul Newman's a very handsome guy, and I was kind of blown away. I was just so enthralled in the film. It's like slow, but not really, because it's all a big chase. And like I said with Psycho last week, I love watching old movies because you get to see what movies it could have inspired in the future. Like, oh my God, I can see so much No Country for Old Men in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, where we're being chased across these vast desert spaces, or these, very professional and good villains that are chasing after our heroes, and we're just constantly on the run. So it's one of my favorite things about watching old films, of course, and old television is like, who could have this influenced? Who maybe watched this and was inspired? And I love to see that, and I love to see people that are inspired by good art. So Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was a freaking blast. I want to find it on 4K or on like a Steelbook, or I don't know if it's on Criterion, but I need to add it to my collection. I gave it 4.5 stars. Then we watched another banger, which I have not watched in many years, but I had seen it so many times as a child. E.T. the Extraterrestrial by Steven Spielberg, of course, from 1982. It's a really good Halloween movie, which I sort of forgot, because there's the whole trick-or-treating and going out on Halloween night subplot, or plot point of it, rather, not subplot. My God, depressing movie. I cried like a baby in the 3rd act. I was really trying to hold back tears. My parents were just watching it, straight face, but I was there. And I actually think it's my favorite Spielberg film. I love a lot of his movies, of course, Catch Me If You Can, The Fabelmans, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, of course, Schindler's List, tons of them. He's a great filmmaker, but something about E.T., just him talking about death and grief and even like divorce, and there's so much of himself in this movie. After having seen The Fabelmans and you understand like what his life was like, really, it's so fascinating to watch his old films and be like, oh my god, like you can really see himself in Elliot, or himself even in E.T. being maybe a family member that he lost or a grandparent that he's having to let go of. And also the like, you know, prosthetics or the animatronics of E.T. and the puppetry, everything like that just works really well. And I love the magic of filmmaking where you can see the film is stripped on top of one another to make it seem like the miniatures are huge and there's humans actually on the screen when they're not. It's a really classic cinema. It's a great story. It's a great Halloween movie that I'd recommend you watch this month. I gave it 5 stars. It's so perfect to me and I absolutely love it. And now I don't want to watch Stranger Things having seen E.T. because it's literally Stranger Things. Of course, it's an homage. They're not ripping E.T. off, but still 5 stars. Then we watched From Russia with Love, only the second James Bond film that is from 1963, starring Sean Connery. My family are really big into the Bond films, of course. I have seen 23 out of 25 Bond films, I think. Thunderball and From Her Majesty's Secret Service are the only 2 that I haven't seen, so maybe I'll check those out this year, actually, or before Bond 26 ever comes out. It's a classic, like very old school spy cinema, but it is funny when you watch these old Bond movies, you sort of expect them to be very untasteful or like in poor taste or just kind of dated, but I was shocked, like, oh, it's actually not that bad. I mean, they do go to like a Roma village and they're making the 2 girls fight, and then James Bond has to pick one of them, but he doesn't, and he's like, oh, I'll have both, and he has a threesome with the 2 Roma women, and it's like there's stuff like that yes, doesn't really work, and the women aren't that deeply written, and there's like, of course, stuff from the 60s that is just going to be, but there is stuff about it that I was like, oh, this is actually done in a tasteful way, or it still holds up and the dramatic tension still works, the action is still very fun. I don't know what movie Sean Connery started wearing the hairpiece at, but he definitely had a toupee in maybe Goldfinger. And one thing I love when I watch movies with my parents is they're like, oh, I don't remember ever seeing this, and we've watched it a couple of years ago, so they get to experience it again. The first 3 Connery films are very good. From Russia with Love was very good as well. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Solidly made. It's actually well directed. It's very gorgeous, and the score is great, of course. But my final film of the week, I got a screener for Kiss of the Spider-Woman, which is out in theaters, but I was traveling and didn't have time to go to the cinema. I was extremely underwhelmed by this film. It's interesting that so many people were raving about it, saying, oh my god, J-Lo's gonna get an Oscar nomination and all that stuff, when I don't see it happening. I think she's not really involved in the story all that much, and even the other performances I didn't find that dazzling. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't all come together ever, and I never really was invested in the love stories that are happening, and some of the music is good, but it doesn't like make you want to listen to the soundtrack again and again like a lot of really good musicals do. So I don't know. It was on my list to watch this week, and I got a screener, so I was like, why not check it out? It's an adaptation of a play that already has a film adaptation with William Hurt, actually, which I didn't know, but I checked out this version. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. It's pretty average, and I'm not going to think about it again, but that has been what else I watched. And in fact, I think that's going to do it for episode 90. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. A very fun movie to talk about. My second favorite film of 2025. Go and check it out in theaters. As always, please rate and review the show 5 stars wherever you get your great podcasts like Watcher of All Things, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or Acast. We are, of course, an Acast-produced show. You can even comment underneath the episode right on Spotify. It's very fun. Let me know what you thought of If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. What are you watching this week? All that good stuff. What are you excited for going into Oscar season? If you're on the YouTube channel, hit like, subscribe, comment down below, and hit the notification bell so you know when the new videos drop once a month, as well as the weekly podcasts you can just watch or listen on YouTube as well. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can email us, watcherofallthings@gmail.com, and find me on social media. Instagram and Threads are at Watcher of All Things. The TikTok account is at watcher.of.all.things. I post on social media every day. There's always videos going up. Check it out. It's very fun. You can also follow my personal Letterboxd account, KikiJ70. That's KIKIJ70. Follow me on there. Drop a comment under one of my reviews that you found me through the show, and I'll follow you back. Let's build a little community. Next week is a very fun episode. We are going to be talking about Begonia. There's a lot of really big movies coming out over the next few weeks, so I'm going to have to pick and choose what we're covering as the main topic and what's the sort of chatting about in the What Else I Watched segment, but lots to cover in the next few weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun, so make sure you are coming back. But for now, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all for the love and the kind messages that I get every week from you guys. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.